Okay, so welcome to another deep dive. And today we're going deep on Uber. Uber. In fact, everybody knows Uber, right? But we're looking past just ride sharing, right? We're trying to figure out, like, what is the road ahead for Uber based on all this material we've been going through?
Yeah, and I think what's so interesting is that, like, Uber wants to be so much more than just like a ride-hailing app, right? They're really aiming to be like this global, I guess, platform, this mobility and logistics platform, right? And technology is just like at the heart of everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's not just about getting from point A to point B anymore, right? So, one of the things that they're really focused on is this, like, transition to autonomous vehicles. These AVs, everybody's talking about them. But, instead of, like, building all of that tech themselves, spending all that money, they're partnering up. Right.
Yeah, they're being really strategic about this. They're working with, like the big players, right? Like Waymo, NVIDIA, these companies that are really, leading the charge when it comes to self-driving technology.
Exactly.
And I think that makes a lot of sense for Uber, right? Because they can kind of leverage the expertise and the resources of these partners, right?
Exactly.
And instead of having to, build it all from scratch themselves.
Exactly. They're kind of like orchestrating this whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. They want to be the platform, right?
Yeah.
The platform that connects everything. So you can imagine, in the future, you open up your Uber app, and instead of, requesting a ride from a human driver, you're requesting a robo-taxi.
Right. And then, of course, there's this whole push towards electric vehicles. And they have these, pretty ambitious goals, right? 100% electric in the U.S., Canada, and Europe by 2030, and then globally by 2040.
Yeah. Which, sounds great on paper, but there are some real challenges they have to overcome.
Yeah. What are some of the hurdles there?
Well, the sources point to a couple of big ones. One is just the cost of EVs, right? They're still more expensive than traditional gas-powered cars. And then you have things like tariffs and trade tensions, especially with China, where a lot of the more affordable EVs are being made. That complicates the picture even more.
Makes it even more complicated. And then the other big one is, like, the whole charging infrastructure situation.
Right. Like, how do you charge all these EVs, especially for drivers who don't have, a garage or a driveway where they can easily install a charger at home? That's a huge logistical hurdle.
Yeah. Huge logistical hurdle. But, it is interesting that, we were talking about drivers. Uber drivers are actually switching to EVs 5 times faster than the average person.
Yeah. Which shows, there's definitely some momentum there. And Uber is, putting their money where their mouth is. They've committed $800 million to support drivers in this transition, with things like lower fees, rental programs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So they're really trying to make it easier.
Absolutely. And it's not just about passenger vehicles.
Right.
They're also investing in, delivery robots, those little, like, high-tech coolers on wheels you might have seen rolling around some cities.
Oh, yeah.
And the long-term vision, it gets even more interesting, right? They're talking about a hybrid delivery model using, humans and robots, and eventually maybe even drones, especially in suburban areas.
Drones?
Yeah. Can you imagine, like, ordering, a pizza and having it delivered by a drone?
Wow. Okay. But all of this stuff, like all this future stuff, it costs a lot of money. Like, how are they actually doing financially?
Well, yeah. The good news is they are profitable, finally. They reported over $1 billion in operating profit last quarter.
Wow.
And their stock is up 29% this year. So, Wall Street seems to like what they're doing.
Okay, so things are looking good.
Things are looking good, but there are some, headwinds as well. Like, one big challenge is rising insurance costs. Especially in the U.S., it's really impacting drivers, and it could potentially lead to higher fares for riders as well.
Yeah, that's never good. But, all this talk about automation, right? We're talking about robotaxis, we're talking about drones delivering things. Like, what about the human drivers, right? A lot of people are worried about their jobs.
Yeah, that's a valid concern. And the sources we looked at definitely acknowledge that. Uber says they're investing in alternative income opportunities for drivers, like delivery, shopping, and even things like, contributing to AI training, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, what does that even mean? Like, drivers helping to train the AI?
Yeah, it could be things like providing data or feedback, helping to refine the algorithms that power these autonomous vehicles and delivery systems. It suggests they are trying to find ways for humans and automation to coexist in this future they're building.
That's interesting. So they're not just like, oh, well, the robots are taking over. See you later, drivers.
No, I mean, at least that's what they're saying.
Okay, so beyond the U.S., I mean, they're a global company. Where else are they looking for growth?
Well, markets like India and Southeast Asia are huge opportunities for them. They're seeing a lot of growth in those regions.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And underpinning all of this is this increased reliance on artificial intelligence.
Yeah. AI is like the secret sauce for them. They're using it to optimize pretty much everything, predicting demand, cutting costs, and creating this smarter, more efficient global network.
Okay, so wrapping all of this up, right? It seems like Uber's on this massive journey. Right? Robo-taxis coming down the line, EVs, big push for EVs, facing some challenges, but getting there. Delivery robots, drones, maybe even, flying through the air, delivering stuff. They're dealing with financial realities, trying to figure out the role of human drivers in this future. And they're looking to expand globally.
And it's all powered by AI.
And it's all powered by AI. It's a complex picture, but I think it's clear that their ambition is huge. And that whole on-demand everything vision, I think that's really driving a lot of this. So given all of this, right, like think about how we move ourselves around today, how we get things delivered. What do you think, like 10 years down the line, what's going to be the biggest change? Like what aspect of all of this is going to be the most dramatically transformed?
I don't know. That's a tough one.
It's a big question.
I'll let the listeners ponder that one.
Yeah. Think about that.